Creating a guided tour or list of highlights can be super beneficial to your visitors. Remember, Matterport is a digital twin platform, not a guided tour. You need to create that guided tour once the digital twin has been processed. And this is how you go about doing that. If we look over here at my model, I'm already in the edit mode on my model page, and I go into guided tour. And I can see this model already has a large guided tour. A lot of highlights have been created here, but I just wanted to walk you through all the little bits and pieces of guided tours tool before we dive in and create our own. So we'll start down here. This is a highlight. I have 45 highlights. You can see that right over here. I can collapse this or expand it. And over here on the top right, I can close out of this tool, clear all of my highlights, or go into tour settings. So let's do that. And you can see that right now my presentation mode is set to story tour. This allows me to add a short title and description to each one of the highlights if I want to. Over here I have the highlight reel, which will allow me to actually see the highlights as the tour is being played. And this can be really great if you don't want to use this as a guided tour per se, but more as a list of highlights, allowing your visitors a very quick and easy way to navigate between the different areas of the digital twin. In this mode, like the story mode, I can choose to make this a playable tour, which will be a guided tour sort of effect, but I can also choose to disable this, just leaving the highlights for themselves. I can also choose to enable that and disable the highlights, which basically means that I don't see the highlights, but I can still play the tour. At that point, you may as well just use the story tour. I'll go ahead and keep that. And if I choose none, of course, that means any guided tour or highlights that I may have previously captured. If I don't want to delete those highlights in guided tour, for example, because I might use them later on, I can just choose none for now, and that'll eliminate my visitor's ability to see and interact with the guided tour highlights. I'm going to go ahead and choose story tour for now, but now that you know the difference between story tour and highlight reel, I wanted to get out of here for a minute and go into settings. Go into spaces, and right here it says guided tour story mode. This toggle will set whether the story mode is the default mode every time a new digital twin is processed. So if you are partial to using the story mode, you may as well activate this toggle. If you don't want to use the story mode and really prefer using your highlight reel as a list of highlights, you can disable this, and that of course means that the highlight reel as opposed to story tour will be your default selection. Now that we have that set up, let's check out transitions. Over here I've got slideshow or walkthrough, and by choosing one or the other, I'm setting the default transition every time a new highlight gets added. So I'll keep it with walkthrough for now. Walkthrough and slideshow transition speed settings are universal guided tour settings, which only means that these settings apply for the entire guided tour. All transitions between all highlights will be as I set them here. Of course, I can change it at any time, but they are going to stay consistent between all the different highlights. Under the panning tab, I can set the default pan direction and rotation angle over here, but these are editable per highlight, so I can change these at any time between the different highlights however I want to. So for now, I'll keep these default settings as they are because I'm probably going to go through every single highlight and adjust these at that time. Rotation speed, dollhouse rotation speed, floor plan zoom speed, these are all just like the transition speeds. Any modification I make to these sliders is going to hold true for the entire guided tour. And finally, here at the bottom, I can reset everything here back to default. For now, I'll click done and we will move on to each highlight. So you can see on the highlight itself, I have a trash can icon, I have an edit icon, I have a title down here, which is actually not a title, it's the scenes field, and I'll show you that in a second. Down here, I have the number of highlights. So this is highlight number 16. 17, 18, and so on. I have the transition listed here. This one is walkthrough, as is this one and this one as well. If it was slideshow, it would say slideshow down here. And on the right side of the highlight, I have the pan direction. This one is set to auto, this one is left, this one is right, and so on. If I go into edit, because I've chosen the story tour presentation mode, editing these titles and description will actually appear in the bottom left corner as I'm working through the guided tour. So in this case, the title is set, the description is set, and the scene is set. I'll show you where the scene appears in a minute. I can go over here to behavior, and this is where I really get into the details of how this specific highlight behaves. As you can see, I can choose for this specific highlight to transition either as a slideshow, which just fades out and fades back in, or a walkthrough, which kind of animates between one highlight to another, and whether the pan direction of this specific highlight is set automatically, pans to the right, or pans to the left, and how many degrees it pans. Now, of course, depending on how you want your visitors to experience the specific area of the guided tour will determine for how long you want that pan to last. But also take into consideration the length of your title and description over here. You want to give them enough time to be able to read that. So that too will play a role in determining how long that pan lasts. Now let's go ahead and create our own highlight reel. Now I can choose add highlight right here, or I can import from previously captured photos. This does not allow you to import photos from your computer that have nothing to do with your digital twin. This is really just importing previously captured photos using the Photos tool right over here. So because in my case, I have not previously captured any photos, I'll just use the add highlight button right here. Add this highlight, you can see it drop in right over there. I'll pan in this direction, and then I'll go over here, and I want to go into this bathroom and add a highlight. I'm going to pan in this direction, and I'll come back out here, and I want to go over into this closet. So let's say this is my guided tour. I've just got these 3 highlights. It's a pretty short one. Let's go ahead and edit these. I'll start with this one, give it a title, go into behavior. I want to make sure that I pan to the left, so I'll tap left. I'll keep it at 35 degrees for now, make it walk through. I like using these arrows to go between the different highlights, so I'll just go to the next one. Keep this as walkthrough. In this case, I want to pan to the right. Again, I'll keep this at 35 because I'm not exactly sure what that means. Go to the last one. And because I may add more highlights later on, I'll go ahead and pan to the right. In this case, again, keep it at 35 and just hit done. Okay, I'll go back here and let's preview this. So it pans to the left. Now it's going to walk through, animate to my next highlight. Pan to the right. And pan to the right again. Okay, so after testing this, I noticed, of course, that after this pan to the right, it zipped around and went a different direction that was not intended. So I don't like that. I want it to pan to the right and then just come out here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have this highlight selected. I'm gonna go over here, not to that one, to this one. And I'm gonna add a highlight that is not intended as a highlight, really. I'm just kind of guiding my tour along. So I'll add this here. It's gonna pop in right here. By the way, I can click and drag these to move them around. I'm just gonna keep this right here. Go to the behavior, and now I'm gonna make this 0. I don't want it to stop at this highlight. This is not a highlight that is important. I'm just kind of assisting the guided tour in the direction that I want to take it. Click done, try that again, hit preview. All right, so you saw how instead of zipping around the wrong direction to the left, now it actually just kind of continued over here, popped over to this highlight, had a short pause. Because it's 0 degrees, there's really hardly any pause at all, but there was a little bit of a pause. And then it moved on to the next highlight down over here. I think that is certainly a much better experience for my visitor. It's not perfect because of that subtle little pause between the highlights, so what I can do to address that if I wanted to is delete this highlight. Now I just go in and edit this last highlight, go into behaviors and choose slideshow. This determines the transition between the previous highlight and this highlight. Click done, go back over here, hit preview. Now once this is done panning to the right, it's going to fade out, fade back in, and I have the closet highlight. So that's just another trick that you can use to optimize the guided tour for your visitors. And last thing, as I mentioned, I want to cover the scenes option. If I go into edit, I have scenes down here, and I can add bedroom. And you can already kind of see in the preview where this is going to be located. I can add a description, hit done. And if I go up here to preview and hit play, you can see that the scene appears right down here at the bottom. It says bedroom. If I don't have it, you just won't see it at all. Your visitors, of course, will still be able to see the title and description in the bottom left corner. They just won't be able to see that little scenes indicator in the corner. And that's really all there is to it.